Hey everybody, welcome back again to another episode of Momentum Motorsports Meeting. My name is Wyatt Thompson. Welcome back to another episode number 41. Got a lot to cover. Got quite a bit to cover this week. We've got the ARCA Menard Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series at Kansas Speedway. And we missed a lot of news from the previous episode that I forgot to mention last week, and we'll be covering that. That'll be part of our motorsports segment. We've got some good old F1 news, some Indycar news, some NASCAR news, some NASCAR lawsuit news, some, just some big NASCAR, TV ratings to talk about. We'll talk about it all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. This is Momentum Motorsports Meeting. Alrighty, so we're going to kind of kick things off here with the ARCA Menard Series race at Kansas. We'll talk about the winner here. Brendan Queen got the win, dominated it. Kind of had a lot of challengers, for the win for sure. This race had 2 overtime restarts, and even that didn't really stop him too much. And he was able to win it and hold off a hard-charging Gio Ruggiero. Congratulations to Brendan Queen. That win basically seals it for the ARCA Menard Series Championship. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But for right now, we'll go ahead and take a look at the notable finishers. Really good run for Chris Wright, who got booted from Our Motorsports early in the Xfinity Series season. Just kind of trying to salvage what he can from this year and, maybe even try to save his career, honestly. Chris Wright gets a top 5. Good run for him. Taylor Reimer. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. Taylor Reimer for Nitro Motorsports finishes P5. Fun statistic, according to Joseph Srigley, Taylor Reimer is now the 3rd woman in ARCA Menard Series history to score a top 5 on pavement and dirt, joining Isabella Robusto and Haley Deegan. That's a pretty cool statistic there. Good top 10 runs for Andrew Patterson. Thad Moffitt. Moffitt started 3rd early in this race. Kind of fell back a little bit, but was inside the top 10 for most of this race. Gets a top 10. Good run for both of those 2 drivers. Ryan Roulette, friend of the show, gets a top 15. That's a nice run for him. Haven't seen him in an ARCA car in a while, it feels like. Great top 15 run for Tony Cosentino as well for Fast Track Racing. Andy Jankowiak, wanted to talk about him. He deserves a lot of credit. Was in the top 5 almost all race long. And then when Brendan Queen took the white flag, he crashed on the outside wall in turns 3 and 4. Gut-breaking, absolutely heartbreaking because that 73 car looked very, very good on track. Corey Day, 23rd. Unfortunately, he had an engine blow up. He was also having similar mechanical issues during practice as well, so rough weekend all around, but man, he was at times challenging Brendan Queen and Gio Ruggiero for the lead. That 77 car looked really, really strong. Top 5 results strong, but the results of, this race doesn't show for it. LeVar Scott finishes 25th. Rough finish for him. Scraped the wall a little bit about halfway into this race, and then kaboom, went the right front tire. Really stinks because he was 2nd in points and the only guy to even contend with Brendan Queen for the ARCA Menard Series Championship. And speaking of the championship, let's take a look at the championship standings with 1 race left. That 1 race finale being at Toledo this upcoming weekend. Yeah, Brendan Queen basically has to start this race, and he'll be crowned the champion of the ARCA Menard Series. I do wish LeVar Scott didn't blow that tire, halfway into this race because, if he didn't, we would have seen a fight all the way to the end. But either way, lasted for 19 of the 20 races. I can't really complain, but will be exciting to see what happens at Toledo. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the Xfinity Series race at Kansas. Let's go ahead and start with the winner. Brandon Jones gets the win, was about a top 3 car almost all race long. He and Connor Zilich were neck and neck for the race lead late in this race, And Jones, with the better car on the long run, then Zilich gets the win. I want to talk about Brandon Jones a little bit. Brandon Jones has always been very, very good at this track. I think his last win at this track was 2019. So he has a lot of experience at Kansas. And for whatever reason, I just didn't have him really contending. I thought it was just going to be Connor Zilich and Justin Allgaier and nobody else really contending. But he showed something. He showed us something. He showed that, hey, there is competition. You can beat Connor Zilich and Justin Allgaier. Those two drivers, they've been like the dominant drivers of the season so far. Not even, there's been at times where nobody can really even touch them. But this race, however, Brandon Jones for Joe Gibbs Racing in a Toyota was able to get the win. So the 20 team has been pretty quick. They have a decent chance of making the championship 4. They've got a similar 1.5 mile track at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That's the round of 8 opener, so Brandon Jones could win there. Just someone to keep an eye on, for the next 2 weeks, especially when we get to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, because, like I said, I haven't said that much about Brandon Jones and the 20 team. It feels like that team has just been quiet and consistent, but congratulations to Brandon Jones and Joe Gibbs Racing. Let's take a look at the notable finishers. Great top 5 results for Austin Hill and Sammy Smith. Those are two drivers deep below the cut line that really needed a good run, and they gained a good amount of points on that cut line. We'll take a look at the cut line in a little bit. Jesse Love got a top 10, also got some stage points, and as well, he gained a good amount of stage points. He was also another driver that was below the cut line. Good top 10 result for him. Taylor Gray, Nick Sanchez, a couple more playoff drivers getting top 10 runs. Shout out to Brennan Queen and Dean Thompson, both finishing inside the top 10. That's really good for them. William Sawalich was touching the top 10 for a bit, finishes 11th. Good run for him. Justin Allgaier probably had the best car, and unfortunately on one of those final restarts just didn't have enough tires, enough sets of tires near the end. He ends up finishing 13th, but that definitely doesn't show, how good he was. That car was very, very good. Justin Allgaier, Zilich, and Brandon Jones had the best cars on the track for the win. How about Kyle Sieg? Finishing in the top 20. Great run for him. His brother Ryan Sieg just below him, finishing 19th. Harrison Burton, one of the playoff drivers, finishes 20th. Just felt like throughout the race, I was keeping my eye on him. I was like, what was up? And it just looked like he just didn't have the pace. It just seemed to lay an egg. Came into this race above the cut line. Again, we'll take a look at that in a minute where he finishes after. But very, very unfortunate for Harrison Burton. It just felt like he laid a massive egg. There was no pace to the car. Didn't get many stage points at all. Didn't really do any. Tried to make a little bit of strategy, but that obviously didn't work. Just very, very unfortunate. Do want to shout out Justin Bonsignor. Was running in the top 10, or like right around the top 10 late in this race, where Nick Sanchez just ended up turning Justin Bonsignor at the exit of turn 2. Just a misjudgment on his end. Definitely wasn't on purpose, but big shame for Justin Bonsignor. He ends up finishing 37th. Let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff cut line. Brandon Jones with that win. He's already locked in. Connor Zilich and Justin Allgaier well above the cut line. They're essentially going to be locked in on points. Sam Mayer is 43 points above the cut line. I think he's going to be safe as well. Taylor Gray is plus 16. I like his performance for this upcoming weekend. They're racing at the Charlotte Roval this upcoming weekend. The 54 team is great on road courses. They have been one of the better teams on road courses. I expect Taylor Gray and the 54 to run very, very well. I think they will move on to the round of 8. Sheldon Creed, he is plus 12. In my honestly opinion, I really don't know what to make of this team, because it feels like they could be either hit or miss. They're either running great or they're not. Or they're just, if they are running great, they get caught in someone else's mess or something. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, what this team can do when we get to qualifying at the Charlotte Roval. Carson Quaffle is plus 9. Main goal is to just get stage points. I don't really like his odds at the Charlotte Roval, if there is anyone that could get eliminated that's above the cut line, I feel like it would be him. Jesse Love, great result. Entered this race -3 and is now the last guy in, +5. That's a really, really good result. If he can have another one like that at the Roval, I think he'll be okay. Nick Sanchez is the first guy out, 5 points out. I'm actually pretty confident in how this team will perform at the Charlotte Roval. Last year, Parker Kligerman was in the same car, in the same team, and he was in position to win at the very, very end of this race. And I feel like, with that knowledge that Big Machine Racing has from last year, I feel like they're going to take that and give everything they've got for Nick Sanchez. And in my opinion, I feel like this is the team that could very well advance that's below the cut line right now. Austin Hill, even though he is 7 points out, he still gained a lot of points. Entered this race 16 points out. He is now 7 points out. It's easily not a must-win for him. For a second, I thought it was, but with how great he was at Kansas, it's definitely not a must-win for them. Same thing for Sammy Smith. Sammy Smith entered this race 24 points below the cut line. He is now -14. It's not a must-win for him either, I believe. And Harrison Burton, with that struggling day that he had, came into this race +9. He is now -8. Lost like 20 points or something. Huge, very, very disappointing result for Harrison Burton. In my opinion, I feel like Harrison Burton is going to have to win. I just don't see the momentum heading his way. He just does not have the momentum, especially from this race and the previous race as well. I don't like his odds at the Charlotte Roval. I think he has to win. But that's the playoff cut line with one race left in the round of 12, the Charlotte Roval. Can't wait to see what happens. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the Cup Series race at Kansas. There's a lot to get into. Toyota drama, Penske tanking their days. Let's just go ahead and start with the finish. The finish is probably what's on my mind the most. On the restart, it was Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick needing to win to advance on the inside lane, and Christopher Bell and his teammate Chase Briscoe on the outside lane. Bubba Wallace gets a pretty good launch, runs Bell up the track just a little bit, heading into turn number 3 and 4, heading into the white flag. Bubba Wallace looks like he's got the lead, and then Hamlin kind of takes second, and out of turn 2, Hamlin gets an outstanding run on Bubba Wallace, gets to the inside of Bubba Wallace, heading into turn 3. Denny Hamlin runs Bubba Wallace up the track just a little bit. Bubba Wallace gets into the wall, forcing Hamlin to lift a little bit, and then that kind of gives a big opening on the bottom lane for Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott coming out of nowhere on the bottom, bangs with Denny Hamlin to get the lead. Denny Hamlin tries to side draft at the exit near the tri-oval, but it's too little too late, and Chase Elliott gets the win in flying fashion. That might be the best restart I think I've ever seen from Chase Elliott. I think he restarted like 10th on that final restart. I don't know how he got up to the lead. Yeah, Toyota gave this win away in the worst way possible. And there's a lot to say here. I don't blame Denny Hamlin going for the win there. He's trying to get 60 wins, trying to get like 4th on the all-times wins list. He wants win number 60. I think he wanted to win because he knows that, the 11 team is not good on the road courses. And guess what's next week? A road course. And I think that win would have pretty much all but sealed it. And I don't really mind him going for the win there. And I also understand Bubba Wallace fans for potentially being frustrated. Like, hey, Denny Hamlin is above the cut line. Bubba Wallace isn't and needs to win. Like, Hamlin could have lifted and given Bubba Wallace the win, but then we kind of get into that conversation of, like, team orders and the 100%, rule race that we experienced, like, last year during the playoffs at Martinsville. Oh, my gosh, that was an absolute nightmare to get through. In my opinion, I think what every driver did was fair. I think what Bubba Wallace did to, Christopher Bell, running him up the track a little bit, not walling him, was fair. And I think Denny Hamlin, kind of running Bubba Wallace up the track a little bit, and Bubba Wallace hitting the wall, I think that was also fair. I also don't really mind Chase Elliott kind of banging Denny Hamlin to try to get that lead and get the win. I think I actually really, really enjoyed that. So, yeah, I don't have, too many issues with it. I mean, for any fans that are kind of wanting to call Denny Hamlin and get him to apologize, Denny Hamlin's not going to apologize. I've learned his character, and I've listened to enough of his podcasts well enough to know that, like, hey, I'm not going to apologize. I'm here for the win. During the race, I am the driver of the number 11 car. I'm not a team owner. And I think he very clearly demonstrated that. So it's unfortunate for 2311 Racing, because they really, really could have used the win, entering the deep points gap that they were in already. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's a big drama between Toyota, because Toyota, in my opinion, should have won this race. Like, they had the best cars. There was like the top 6 or 7, or probably top 6. They were all Toyota drivers. The top 6 were. So, yeah, I feel like, Toyota really gave that win away in the worst way possible. I feel like they should have won it. Congratulations to Chase Elliott and Hendrick Motorsports just being there when it mattered. I will be honest. I want to talk about Chase Elliott a little bit. I'll be honest. I did not have this 9 team advancing to the next round because, I mean, sure, they're very, very consistent. They're probably one of the most consistent teams this season, but just in this playoff format, that just doesn't get you. That doesn't get you to the championship 4. That doesn't win you championships. I'll be very, very interested to see how he performs in the round of 8. I honestly don't believe he will make the championship 4, but I don't know. He could change my mind, because Chase Elliott ran a genuinely very, very good race. Like, he was one of the only 3 cars that were even trying to compete with the Toyota teammates. But congratulations to Chase Elliott and Hendrick Motorsports. Let's take a look at the top finishers. Again, Toyota should have won this race. Hamlin and Bell, I think, had the best cars. It's hard to say who had the very, very best. In my opinion, I'm giving it to Christopher Bell, because Bell on the long run was flying, man. And I was like, go, Bell, go. I was kind of honestly cheering for him, because he was trying to kind of catch Denny Hamlin and, a couple of other drivers during this race. Chase Briscoe was about a 5th place car all race long. He gets a really, really good result. Want to talk about Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, those 2 drivers in both. Those 2 drivers, they did not start this race out very well. I don't think they got many stage points, but especially when the second half of this race started, they really, really turned it around with some well-made adjustments. They found something, and they very, very contended for the win. And I was very, very surprised and shocked at how quick they were able to, adjust it from 16th on down to all of a sudden in the top 5 contending for the win. That's something that I just truly didn't expect. And I got to give them a lot of props to Reddick and Bubba Wallace for just turning it around. So although they didn't get the win, I think they should be, very, very proud of, the adjustments and the effort that they made to kind of even contend for the win. Kyle Larson finishes 6th. He was another driver that looked very, very solid. Larson kind of felt like himself in the spring, earlier this race. So a great result for Kyle Larson. Shout out to SVG getting a top 10. He essentially started this race 1 lap down, and I don't really know how he was able to get back up on the lead lap. He felt quiet, and part of it is because everyone else is focusing on the playoff drivers. SVG was eliminated, but SVG getting a top 10, I feel like that was a much-needed result for him. Chastain finishes 11th. He probably had a 6th to 8th place car and just didn't seem to take off on the restarts there. Ty Dillon, good top 15 finish for him. Good top 20 run for Cole Custer for Haas Factory Team. I want to talk about Team Penske. That's the other organization that I haven't talked about yet. Team Penske at the start of the weekend did not start well. Blaney hit the wall in practice. Joey Logano had a tire issue in practice as well. All three Penske cars started towards the back, even Austin Cindric. I got to give them a lot of props to them because they made a good amount of progress as the race went on. Joey Logano, I was worried for him, made some strategy in stage 1 to get some stage points, and I thought this was the point where, okay, he's going to fall back. He's going to fall back to 18th or 20th. But to my surprise, he genuinely stayed in the top 10 for most of this race. Like, he was even able to get stage points in stage 2 as well. And, he kind of got caught up in a late race crash. He finishes 21st, but he had a better car to show for it. Like, he had probably a top 10 car going his way. He had a top 10 result going his way, and for most of this race, he entered this race like 24 points above the cut line. And, as the race went on, the gap kind of stayed the same for him. And I was very, very shocked. I was like, I got to give a lot of props to Joey Logano in that 22 car. Because this is a track where Joey Logano really, really seems to struggle at. And just felt like, this past weekend, he didn't. And Blaney, he was kind of the same thing. He had already advanced, but he was around the top 10 for most of this race as well. He finishes 25th, but Austin Cindric, I really, really expected more. I mean, it feels like every time I have high hopes for Austin Cindric, he just something happens that just makes me so disappointed in him. Like, I feel like Austin Cindric is a very, very good driver. Like, he literally, I looked at the 20-lap average run from practice and, who was on the top. He was, in the top 5. So it felt like he was going to have a great long-run setup, kind of take the long-run setup from, Ryan Blaney, since he's had, so much long-run speed for pretty much the entire season. But it felt like the field just noticed it and adjusted to it really, really quick. And Cindric, by the time this race started, Cindric could only muster up 17th, 16th. He could barely get up to the top 15, and was also caught up in that late race crash as well with Joey Logano. But man, I just expected more from Austin Cindric. I mean, now he's in a huge points gap where he really, really needs to win. We'll take a look at the cut line in a little bit, but man, very, very disappointing from Austin Cindric. He is a guy that, I was, genuinely thinking that, hey, he's a dark horse round of 8 driver, and I felt like my reasoning wasn't off, but sometimes the pressure gets to you. A couple of other drivers I wanted to shout out. Zane Smith finishes 31st. He was actually in the top 10, top 15 for a good amount of this race, and then on one of the final restarts, it got turned by John Hunter Nemechek. Got up and into the wall and actually rode the wall. He was on his side, he was on his side and literally rode the wall in turns 3 and 4. Ended up on his roof, kind of rolling over, flipping, one time. Thankfully he was okay, but I was like, whoa, what is that? Why is he flipping? And now I know why he was flipping. He got tapped a little bit by John Hunter Nemechek. Nemechek kind of walled Zane Smith, and Zane Smith kind of was on his side, kind of riding the wall. I honestly believe he was trying to do the Hail Melon move, and it didn't work. The Hail Melon did not work for Zane Smith. But those are your notable finishers. Let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff cut line. Blaney and Elliott, with their wins, they're already locked in. Larson is pretty much locked in as well, plus 54 points above the cut line. Denny Hamlin's weakness is road courses. He's 48 points above the cut line. I think he'll be okay. I know that win, definitely very, very hurts very much, but I think he'll be okay. But that's not to say that 48 points could disappear in a hurry. I'm honestly going to be very, very interested to see what the points are going to look like after the Charlotte Roval. How many points will Denny Hamlin be above the cut line after the Charlotte Roval? Just something to kind of keep an eye out for, and I think that'll be something to definitely watch for sure. Christopher Bell, William Byron, over a 50-point gap. Yeah, they're pretty much safe. Christopher Bell's really, really good at the Roval and pretty good on road courses, so I think he's safe as well. Chase Briscoe is plus 21. I feel like he could be a contender for the Roval, but I think the main thing for him is just going to be stage points. Joey Logano, he is the last guy in, 13 points above the cut line. He is super, super duper lucky that he's not below the cut line right now. He's decent. He's good at the Roval. Really, the Roval, ever since the Charlotte Roval was introduced, he's been pretty solid there. He's really good here. Last year, he was very, very good here. Really put up a valiant effort. I honestly believe that he will advance even if someone below the cut line ends up winning. And speaking of the cut line, let's take a look. Ross Chastain, the first guy out, 13 points out. I feel like he could have gained more points on Joey at the end of this Kansas race. I feel like he could have gained more. It could literally be, 7 points behind Joey Logano, or 6, or 5. 13 is a little bit off. 13 is going to be a little bit rough for him. For Chastain, I feel like he could potentially do it. He's probably going to take, a lot of the setups from Shane Van Gisbergen, so someone to keep an eye on for sure. Bubba Wallace, even with that great turnaround in the second half of this race, only gained 1 point. Entered this race 27 points out. He's now 26 points out. He gained 1 point. One singular point. That's how important stage points are, honestly. I think that honestly gives you a reason, because even though he finished top 5, he did not gain many stage points. 26 points behind, I feel like, I feel like you have to win. I feel like you need to win. I feel like Bubba Wallace needs to advance, and I can say the same thing for Tyler Reddick, who's 29 points below the cut line. I think Reddick and Bubba Wallace are in a must-win if they want to advance. I feel like if they want to advance, they have to win. And for Austin Cindric, 48 points below the cut line, he's in an absolutely must-win. Like, Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick could definitely point their way in if they get, top 3 in the stages and the race. But for Austin Cindric, 48 points below the cut line, I think 60 is the max amount of points you can gain. Yeah, you pretty much need to win. Austin Cindric is pretty good at the Roval. I think he finished 5th at the Roval last year, so he has a decent shot of actually advancing. So, yeah, I mean, really, all 3 drivers, Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, they are pretty much in a must-win scenario. So that's the playoff cut line with 1 race left in the round of 12, that 1 race being the Charlotte Roval. Can't wait to see what happens there. This was honestly a really, really good race. Not as many playoff drivers had issues than in years past. The finish was thrilling. Overtimes were a tad bit much. Zane Smith kind of wall riding the wall the wrong way, trying to attempt the Hail Melon, and it not working and flipping is something that really nobody expected at all. The racing was actually pretty good, especially inside the top 5. I think overtimes kind of gave this race a more dramatic finish, because the finish was going to be okay. There was a good amount of strategy, good amount of racing, good amount of passing. I really enjoyed this race. This was a good race. Now, before we go ahead and get into our motorsports segment, I do want to get into the Cars Tour race at Martinsville. I didn't watch it, but I saw a clip that kind of got fans, pretty upset. Tristan McKee and Sam Yarborough were battling for position. Sam got clear of Tristan McKee out of turn 4. McKee got a pretty decent run out of turn 4. Tried to go to the inside and seemed to misjudge it really, really bad. Some people think that he turned Sam Yarborough on purpose. I can see why people think that. I don't really think Tristan McKee did that on purpose. I think he was just trying to get down to the bottom to pass Yarborough and just poorly misjudged it. So I'm only bringing this up because Tristan McKee, he's run some ARCA races this year. He won the ARCA Menard Series race at Watkins Glen, I think it was the second youngest ARCA Menard Series driver ever to win. And I think he's someone to keep an eye on, because he could potentially run some short track races in the trucks or in the ARCA Series for Spire Motorsports. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. Again, I don't think Tristan McKee did that on purpose. I can see why people, think he did. I think it looks really, really bad. But yeah, just someone to kind of keep an eye on. So now we're going to go ahead and get into our motorsports segment. There are some big news with Junior Motorsports. According to Bob Pockris, Rodney Childers has a new job for 2026. He will be the crew chief for the Junior Motorsports #1 car in the Xfinity Series. Bob Pockris also reports that Carson Kvapil and Connor Zilich will share the #1 car for a number of races, and those races will be TBD. But first off, huge news for Rodney Childers and Junior Motorsports. For Rodney Childers, man, he's been jobless for, 5 months now? Something like that. And, I consider him to be one of the best crew chiefs in the NASCAR Cup Series garage. And to see him kind of get a job, be in the Xfinity Series full time, I think that's really, really cool. Really, really happy for him. I think he wanted to be in the Cup Series. I feel like he wanted to be in the Cup Series because that's where he's been for most of his career. But I think the Xfinity Series is going to be really great for him because, this next-gen car kind of limits the engineering skills and the crew chief skills. Like, this next-gen car is so, it's so tight and everything has to be so compliant. Like, the rule book for the next-gen car is stricter than ever. It kind of, engineers, engineers and crew chiefs' freedom. And I think with the Xfinity Series, with Ronnie Childers being there, I think he can really, really show off those skills in, to where he probably couldn't show them off in the Cup Series with this next-gen car. And, I'll even say this, even during the next-gen car era, he still wasn't the best, but he was still pretty good. Even when Kevin Harvick was racing in the next-gen era, that solid pairing was still pretty good. But yeah, I think for him being in the Xfinity Series, I think he's gonna really, really enjoy it. For Junior Motorsports, what a grab! What a grab to get him on your team. Hiring one of the best crew chiefs in the NASCAR garage. Junior Motorsports might be even stronger next year. And since next year is going to be that topic, it's interesting. If I'm reading this correctly, it says Carson Kvapil and Connor Zilisch will share the number 1 car, according to Bob Pockrass. So that means Carson Kvapil is now going to be part-time next year. Very, very shocking. It's not really sure what happened. I haven't seen anything that kind of shows why Carson Kvapil is part-time. I mean, Carson Kvapil isn't doing bad this year. He's actually been pretty decent. He's currently in the playoffs, 9 points above the cut line. If anything, it's got to be a funding issue, I feel like, because Carson Kvapil, I feel like he had some funding, and then maybe some of that funding or some of the sponsors kind of maybe backed out or something. I don't know, and that's why he's part-time for next year. Very, very unfortunate for him, but hopefully Carson Kvapil can kind of get some more sponsorship to remain full-time. But yeah, huge Junior Motorsports news, signing Ronnie Childers. Ooh, I can't wait to see how Ronnie Childers will perform for next year. Next up, we've got some NASCAR teams in court reaching an agreement. Those two teams are Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing. For some context, Legacy Motor Club sued Rick Ware Racing over a charter. Legacy had bought in a charter for Rick Ware Racing for next year. Rick Ware thought it was for 2027. And so that's why Legacy Motor Club is suing the team. And then in April, Nick DeGroot, I hope I'm saying that right, a reporter for Motorsports.com, he reported that Legacy tried to place restrictions on the charter that Rick Ware Racing has. It unfortunately got denied. Then Rick Ware tried to countersue them. And then in August, according to Bob Pockrass, Legacy Motor Club was granted an injunction that basically prevents Rick Ware Racing from selling their charters. And now we're in September, very, very beginning of October at the time of recording. It now seems like those two teams have made a resolution, and the winner seems to be pointing towards Legacy Motor Club. That's in my opinion. I feel like the winner here in this lawsuit is Legacy Motor Club. Now, according to Bob Pockrass, he spoke to a spokesperson, and he basically said that Rick Ware Racing will continue to race its number 51 as a chartered entry in 2026. So, now that, these two organizations have made resolutions, they've finally, reached a solution, they have no more conflict. What does this mean? Because right now, Rick Ware is leasing one of their charters to the number 60 car for RFK Racing. That's currently being driven by Ryan Preece. And since they have two, they can kind of go back and forth with those two, back and forth, forever and ever and ever till the ends of time, essentially. But now, with these two teams kind of, having their resolution, Rick Ware Racing fielding the 51 as a chartered entry, that only means RFK will have two charters for next year, right? Well, no. According to Bob Pockrass, RFK made a statement saying that they've been told by Legacy and Rick Ware that they will honor their previous contracts. So that essentially means that they will have the 60 car for 2026. So what does this? So again, what does this mean? And that reminds me. I remember Jimmy Johnson saying being on Sirius XM NASCAR radio, and he said 3 months ago that he wants to expand to 3 full-time cars in sometime in the near future. And I think he also said that in The Athletic as well. In 2020, he said, yeah, I want to have 3 full-time cars in 2027. So, again, what does this mean? I don't think what this means is, I don't think that anything is going to change for 2026. I think it all depends on what happens in 2027. I honestly believe that this is going to affect RFK the most, because in 2027, they might have 3 drivers but only 2 charters, since Legacy Motor Club is getting one from Rick Ware Racing. And Rick Ware Racing can't lease, one of their charters if they want to run 1 full-time car. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's all very, very interesting, in the heat of the moment. I think it all is going to depend on, what happens, a year from now when we get back to this topic. So just definitely something interesting to see, what happens, with RFK and with Rick Ware Racing for 2027. Next NASCAR topic. The viewership the past couple of weeks for the NASCAR Cup Series have been down. Yeah, this has been a trend that's been kind of going well, that could very well last to the end of the season. That's lasted for a couple of weeks already. Adam Stern reported that USA Network had 1.29 million viewers for Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race at New Hampshire Speedway. That's down from the last race, and that race was Kansas, and that race had 1.79 million viewers. Looking at that report, that's not good. That's just simply not good. It's really bad, considering the races, for the past couple of weeks have actually been pretty good races. They've been very, very good. New Hampshire race was one of the better New Hampshire races that I've watched, and the Bristol night race this year, even with the ratings down, that might have been the best race of the year. That might have been the race of the year. And there's been a lot of talks about the reasoning for, why the ratings are down and why they're continuing to go down. College football and the NFL are now starting up. NASCAR playoffs, lots of fans don't like that. Not many people are on cable year by year. Cable subscriptions are going down every year. I have 4 reasons to why the ratings are down. First off, the next-gen car and its racing product and the NASCAR playoffs is one reason. The next-gen car hasn't been great on the short tracks, and the racing on super speedways is pretty poor in my opinion, even though this past super speedway race at Daytona in August was pretty darn good. You could argue that the racing with this next-gen car is arguably worse, compared to other races, to other old races that you might have seen in the past. And that could definitely encourage people to not watch NASCAR. And the playoffs. Lots of fans do not like the playoffs that much, and they want a full 36 Winston Cup points format. And ever since watching this sport full-time in 2018, I will say that, having the playoff format and, crowning a champion has many, many flaws. Like the win in your in system, I don't necessarily like that all that much. And I don't really like the one winner race take all. I think that just kind of I feel like it just kind of needs to be expanded a little more to really kind of make its champion legitimate. Having the playoff format is what it is. Having the playoff format now has also encouraged people to, to not tune into NASCAR anymore. And, the points format might change according to an article from The Athletic by Jeff Gluck, and he reports that NASCAR could change and go back to the full season points format. A complete shift, since NASCAR, has been doing the playoffs since 2014, basically. It's an option that NASCAR could go to, and, if they do go to, I think that's going to get, a lot of fans that probably tuned out of the sport, and they might get those fans to kind of get back and watch it again. Second reason, I think college football and the NFL are reaching more and more viewers each and every week, each and every year. not to mention they're also clashing with some of the NASCAR races. Like, I think for the Bristol night race on Saturday, like, the games happening at the same time was the Miami, South Florida game and the Georgia, Tennessee game, I think. And those two games were pretty darn good games. Like, those two games were probably some of the games of the week in college football right now. So I think college football and the NFL are playing a big factor in those races, just kind of, clashing with, the NASCAR times, I think. I think that's kind of the reason. That's another reason why the ratings are down. My third reason is the new TV deal. NASCAR signed this new 7-year TV deal in early January of this year. I got this third reason from Corey LaJoie. Shout out to Corey LaJoie for this reason. I think the TV partners, they've paid so much money to broadcast NASCAR races, and I feel like they don't have much money in their budget to promote their events or even talk about their events on a weekday. So I think the TV deal, while it was great at the start, I think it's really starting to show its drawbacks and its weaknesses. Like, I haven't really seen much promotion from the USA Network at all for its NASCAR Cup Series events, or even from TNT Sports. I haven't seen much promotion out of them. So I think the TV deal is something to definitely consider. My fourth and last reason is simple. Cable TV subscribers are pretty much going down every single year. More people are going to streaming services like Amazon Prime, Peacock. They have got their Roku kind of tied in with Hulu and Netflix and whatnot. And I'll admit, it's very, very expensive to pay for cable TV to watch your favorite sporting events. I'll admit, it's very, very expensive. And I think eventually there will be a point to where there won't be many cable subscribers left, because overall, each and every year they're reaching a down low. They're reaching their all-time low each and every year. And those are my 4 reasons. How does NASCAR fix it? And if I'm going to be honest, I don't really know, because there's a lot more questions than answers right now. And if I'm NASCAR, I feel like there's got to be some stuff. I think the best way to kind of handle this is to just control what you can control. Don't worry about the NFL or college football. Don't really worry about the TV deal, because you've got that lasting for more than 5 years now. I think you need to kind of do what you need to be doing. Kind of try to continue to fix the racing products on the short tracks, continue to be aggressive on the tires, work with Goodyear, and also try to tinker with the playoff and points format. If you can't get rid of the playoffs entirely, at least try to adjust them, or make it to where you have to be top 20 in points for your win to count, or something like that. I feel like that would make fans be. I feel like that would attract a lot more fans if you try to adjusted the playoff format, and even if that doesn't work, go to the full 36 full season points format. Just go to that. And, according to Jeff Gluck, reporter for The Athletic, that is being considered. And, I think another thing that you should do is kind of maybe give some money to your TV partners to try to, get some promotion for some of your racetracks. Promotion is a big, big thing. Remember the IndyCar Iowa doubleheader? There was no promotion in that, and the ratings were down, and there was no crowd there, and because of it, the Iowa doubleheader isn't happening anymore. So I think promotion is a huge, huge key to why, the ratings are not low. I think that's what NASCAR should be doing. And other reasons like college football, NFL reaching more and more viewers, that's something that NASCAR can't really control. And I'd argue that, cable subscriptions, going down each and every year, I think that's something that NASCAR can't really control either. I just wanted to talk about it because I've been kind of evading it for a little while now, and I think it's important to talk about it. And it's hard to talk about it, for sure. So now we'll kind of go ahead and get into some IndyCar news, some Indy 500 silly season news. Dreyer and Red Bull Racing has announced that Jack Harvey will return to the number 24 for the Indy 500 next year. Glad to see that this team is still competing in the Indy 500. Qualified 26th this year, ended up with a 19th place finish. Overall, not too bad. Wishing that pairing the best of luck. I think that's going to be one of those next Indy 500 silly season dominoes that's going to be falling. The 2026 Indy NXT schedule has been released by Bob Pockrass. 17 races, 12 tracks. All races are going to be on FS1 or FS2, according to Bob Pockrass. Going to kind of take a look at it. Lots of doubleheader weekends. Doubleheader at Barber Motorsports Park, then at the Indy Road Course, then a doubleheader at Road America along with Mid-Ohio, and then a doubleheader at Laguna Seca. And fun fact, the doubleheader at Laguna Seca, those are the last 2 races of the Indy NXT season. Do not get me wrong, I love myself a doubleheader weekend, but I think 5 is a little bit hardcore there. I think that's a little bit too much. I think it'll be difficult, if you're a hardcore IndyCar fan. I think it'll be difficult to kind of like watch the races and cover them. I was like, oh, who won this? Who won the Laguna Seca race again? Oh, are you talking about the one on Saturday or the one on Sunday? And you're going to be like, what? There were 2 races? There was a doubleheader? What do you mean? So I think it's going to be pretty difficult to kind of get fans to talk about it, or to get like new fans, attracted to the Indy NXT series. But, either way, races being Saturday and Sunday, they should be good overall. Besides the 5 doubleheader weekends, it's a pretty good schedule. That's some of the IndyCar news. We'll kind of go ahead and finish it off with some F1 news. There was a good amount of news that I missed in the past couple of weeks. First off, I want to mention Romain Grosjean in an F1 car for the first time since his wild crash back in the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2020. He was racing, or he was just kind of doing like a test session or whatnot, just racing the Italy Grand Prix circuit, kind of getting in the Haas car. And then when he came into the pits after his run, he was getting applause from like Ferrari members and Red Bull Racing members and from Haas members, from the Haas F1 Team X account. I was just watching, and there was a video that showed those members just kind of giving a round of applause to Romain Grosjean. And watching that video, man, I mean, that feels so wholesome, man. That is just so wholesome. Like Romain Grosjean with his wild crash at the Bahrain Grand Prix 5 years ago. Such a frightening crash. Actually unbelievable. Like the car just literally split in half. Then he raced in the NTT IndyCar Series from 2021 to 2024. And now out in F1 for the first time in 5 years. That's just awesome. It kind of made me thought that, like, yeah, people have a lot of respect for Romain Grosjean. You can love him, or you can just not like him at all. But you have to admit that is pretty cool, and that's really wholesome. That's just something that I really wanted to cover because there hasn't been much F1 news, the past couple of weeks, and this was something that I really saw that I really wanted to shout out. Next up, some F1 silly season news. Pierre Gasly has extended his contract with Alpine until the end of 2028. Going off of a quick reaction, he's been Alpine's best driver this year. I think this is a pretty good move for Alpine, kind of keeping a solid driver in your lineup for a few years while you try to find your second driver, try to get him to learn and develop and learn something from Pierre Gasly. I think this is a pretty good move for Alpine, and also a pretty good move for Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly kind of gets more like job security, pretty much. Again, the contract could break, that he could have a buyout, but with the current situation that Alpine is in right now, I don't really see him, getting fired until, 2028 or 2029 or something. Next up, some track news. The Monaco Grand Prix remaining on the F1 calendar through 2035. I feel like fans don't really like the Monaco Grand Prix because it's so hard to pass. Like, literally, it's so difficult. And I've watched the past couple of Monaco Grand Prix, and the racing there, it's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. Like, the racing results will literally be from qualifying. And I understand fans not wanting it on the schedule, for another decade, but I gotta be honest, as a new F1 fan, like, I'm trying to get into F1 a little bit more often, and I'll be honest, I really love the location. The location, just looking at on the TV screen, the location is great. I love the yachts right next to the track. That's probably my favorite. That's my favorite part of the whole circuit, is just the yachts in the water right by the track. It looks so cool. One of my things on my bucket list is to attend the Monaco Grand Prix, just because I love the location. I just love the way it looks. The location is great. The yachts is just like right near the circuit. Is so cool. I just really want to go. I just really want to go here, and it's one of my things on my bucket list. So I understand why fans don't like it, don't like the Monaco Grand Prix. I get it, but I really do love the location. And hey, maybe it'll get better. Maybe the racing will get better by the time we reach 2035, a decade from now. So that's all of the F1 news, and that should do it. Another solid, productive episode this week. We'll be back next week. I'll be out of town visiting some family, but we've got the Charlotte Road Course race for the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. We've got the ARCA race finale at Toledo Speedway, and then the F1 Singapore Grand Prix. I will see you guys later. Have a great day, everybody. Take care, y'all.